guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of The Dark Wife by S.E. Dimer. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling, except for Hades is actually a woman. And it's a pretty straightforward retelling. It does take place, I believe, in like the ancient world, like ancient Greece kind of thing. You don't really see Earth, obviously, because it's, you know, taking place kind of like the underworld and like the god areas of, you know, retellings, so you don't really get to see like what time period it is. It's implied that it's taking place during that time, so since it's a traditional retelling, everyone is who they're supposed to be. Like, it's Hades and Persephone, it's not some other characters that are like Hades and Persephone, like it's actually Hades, Persephone, all the other gods, Olympus, the underworld, the river Styx, all of that is present in here. So if you like the more traditional retellings, then you will probably like this because it does have those like actual elements from the myth in there. So first off, when we talk about the world building, we don't get a ton of world building. I mean, we do and we don't. So the underworld, I do like how it's done in here, but I tend to prefer underworlds that are a little more non-traditional as far as retellings and anything involving the underworld. Like, I really enjoy like the what dreams may come type underworlds, or like the underworlds that aren't what we think of when we think of like Dante's Inferno. This isn't exactly like that, but it definitely has a lot of those elements. It has the traditional river Styx, it has Charon being, you know, creepy, it has it being very much underground and dark, and all of the kind of imagery that you get with like the traditional underworld. So again, if you're a fan of that, you're probably gonna like this. I didn't think that that was a negative necessarily. I'm not really picky about that kind of element of Hades and Persephone retellings. I'm okay with any kind of underworld. My preference is just like the more imaginative ones, I guess. But so we don't get like a ton of extra world building. I feel like a lot of this does rely on you just having like previous knowledge and like pop culture references to like Olympus and the underworld and stuff like that. So there doesn't need to be like a ton of world building on that because it is going along those kind of traditional lines. Next, let me talk about the characters. The characters in Hades Persephone retellings are what I pay attention to the most because I think that's what most authors actually get wrong, in my opinion, for the kind of Hades Persephone retellings that I like. So typically speaking, authors will have a very meek and mild Persephone, and they'll have a Hades that's either like overly brooding, borderline cruel, or like the Christian Satan. No. So I actually really liked the characterizations in here, particularly Hades. I really enjoyed Hades as a female character. It was amazing. And they had Hades as this like solemn but not overly serious, not angsty, just very respectful and serious about their job, but not angry, not lashing out at anybody, not abusive, not any of that. And I really like that kind of character. Like, it worked really well for this, and I do like Hades and the more kind of solemn, I can do an angsty Hades, like I'm fine with that too, but having them a little less, like, not angry, not overly brooding, and this was a very, like I said, a good ruler, a respectful person, and I really enjoyed that element because Hades, even in myth, wasn't seen as a horrible god or anything. Hades is actually one of the gods that doesn't get into a ton of trouble and isn't a total jerk. So having Hades who is, you know, has a good work ethic kind of thing, that is very good and in line with the myth and what I like seeing about the traditional myth. So that was in here. And I really enjoyed the interaction between Hades and Persephone here as well. This story really flips a lot of elements about the myth, and it has some of those traditional things, but it shows it through a different lens. And I really liked that element. I liked our Persephone as well, but I was a little more neutral on her than loving her. Persephone is my favorite character of the two, of Hades and Persephone. And so typically speaking, I pay more attention to her characters and how she's characterized. And I liked her in here. I didn't dislike her. She wasn't overly innocent or meek or mild or anything, but she didn't quite have the punch that I like her to have. Like, I want my Persephone to be a little more spontaneous and a little more taking risks and a little more fearsome and kind of powerhouse. And she was powerhouse in a quiet, understated way, and it worked for this story and it worked for this relationship that they were depicting in here, but it's just not my favorite. So again, I'm more neutral on her than I would like, but I did really like their interactions. This also is a really good story for people who prefer more of the fluffy relationships or the angsty relationships in the reading about things. This is more stable, which I like seeing because, again, we don't have over angst, because I feel like Hades Persephone retellings tend to rely on a little more angst. It was still slow burn, but it was nicer. And especially when you're having an LGBTQ plus relationship like this, it's nice to see them just be happy. Like, it's so nice and so refreshing. And also, I mentioned this on Snapchat and I think on Goodreads. This book is so much gayer than I thought it was going to be, which is so nice. So nice. Like I was fully expecting, because it's in the synopsis, that the two main characters are lesbians. Awesome, great. But there's also a ton of other female characters and there's more than one lesbian relationship going on, and I'm all for it. There's a lot of talk of kind of gender flipping, not necessarily characters that change genders, but that the gods in power have actually spread rumors about certain gods and said that they're male when they're actually female, so it has this kind of like power struggle patriarchy thing going on, which I like. So this book is very female focused in a lot of different ways, and I really liked that. There were female friendships and multiple female characters, more so than male, and I really enjoyed that because typically speaking you do get a lot of male characters in like Greek mythology and stuff, and this had more female characters overwhelmingly. Next, let me talk about the plot. I enjoyed this plot, but again, it wasn't my favorite. It was pretty traditional, or things that I knew were coming, which is fine with me because I read Hades and Persephone retellings to get that, so it was totally fine. But I felt like the pacing in here was off. So the beginning kind of dragged for too long until you got to more of like the action-y type stuff, and then the end dragged and then wrapped up really quickly, and in a way where I was like, how did that this doesn't really make sense that it wrapped up that easily and that quickly. So that was kind of annoying for me. I liked the middle, but the rest of it, like the ends, were a little, it was a little off for me. And this definitely isn't like an action-y story whatsoever. I don't need my retellings to be action-y with Hades and Persephone at all. Like, it's definitely about their relationship. But since their relationship in this one is not angsty, it's a little more cute and stable, which like I said is great. You don't have any kind of like relationship things really pulling it forward that much, so it kind of is a slower read. If you like that kind of thing, you'll like this. And like I said, if you like the traditional retellings, a little bit slower and like stable relationship, then this is for you. I felt like the villain character, while I enjoy Zeus as a villain because that tends to be the villain in Hades Persephone retellings, I always enjoy Zeus as a villain because Zeus is a douchebag, like #1 fuckboy of all time. But again, it's just kind of like predictable. Like, I like having a little bit more to my Hades Persephone retellings, and like I said, the plot just kind of dragged in places, and I kind of wish it wouldn't have. Especially since this book is so short. Overall, I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed the stability of their relationship. I like seeing like traditional kind of retellings and those elements that I am used to seeing, and that the characterization, especially of Hades, was really well done, that Persephone wasn't awfully done. But it still was lacking in a few elements that couldn't quite bring it up to a wonderful retelling in my opinion, so I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. So comment down below and let me know what you thought of The Dark Wife. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!